I would like to acknowledge the Awabakal people as the traditional custodians of this land. I thank them for and acknowledge the ongoing relationships with the country and all that is inherent with the country of ancestral domains. I would also like to honor and pay respect to the elders both past, present and future, and extend my respect to other Indigenous Australians, fellow students and colleagues. Today, everything we do in Australia is taking place on Aboriginal land. We live, work and play on lands with a deep, rich history that predates any colonial history. We all therefore have a connection to this older, lesser-known history. I am Marilyn Mangerel and I'm presenting my digital story from Awabakal Country. Referred to as Flatwater people, the Awabakal Nation stretches from the coast to the Hunter River to the Watangan Mountains. The wedge-tailed eagle is their identity symbol. Before the arrival of Europeans, Awabakal people were united through a common language and strong ties of kinship. To Australia's First Nations people, land is not something to be owned. Rather, it is linked between all aspects of existence: identity, spirituality, family, language and culture. The history of Aboriginal people in Newcastle, like in many other areas across Australia, is fraught with dispossession, cultural destruction and discrimination. What was once a large and thriving Indigenous population in the area became severely diminished by violent and careless acts over several generations. Despite this, it is also a history of survival, cultural endurance and regeneration. What history tells us is that there is an inherent difference in the way Aboriginal people and European perspectives look at and treat the land around them. For Aboriginal people, land ownership and tribal boundaries have nothing to do with fence lines or man-made marks. First Nations people navigate a complex connection to country, complicated and further influenced by Australia's historical foundation of colonialism and dispossession, much like the colonial settlement in India. As an Indian by ethnicity, I can say that Australia and India are not only bounded by curry and cricket, but more than a century ago, two countries, located on either side of the Indian Ocean, shared an uncommon thread: the British invasion. For Aboriginal people in both countries, relationship with their traditional lands was the foundation of who they were as a people. The land held their history. In addition to removing them from their lands, everything that was made them who they are, their distinct cultural practices, languages, spirituality, was outlawed, prohibited or erased. Shamefully, Australia is the only Commonwealth country that has not negotiated a treaty with its traditional owners. This is a sad indictment on the country and has created a real barrier for meaningful change. The gap will never be closed until state and federal governments start facing up to the reality of everyday life for Indigenous people and lay to rest their missionary approach to Indigenous affairs. Today, I work with Aboriginal people and their well-being. I see how important connection is to everyday life and to healing. Connection to family, other people, culture, country and spirituality. I see the importance of belonging, hope and cultural pride. These are key facilitators of healing. The many conversations I entered with the First Nations people have helped me contextualize a global narrative of resilience and overcoming. Awabakal people have instinctively worked to build bonds of mutual understanding with the newcomers through a reconciling relationship. Without reconciliation, it is impossible to garner the wisdom from experiences in our collective past. For Indigenous people, knowledge passes through the bond of relationship. So until this relationship is repaired, knowledge and wisdom are difficult to share. Edward Thurgold was a missionary who chose to live among, protect, befriend and provide advocacy on behalf of Awabakal people during the most vulnerable periods. Wiyil Kaigho, meaning talk with one another, is an Awabakal practice of mutual respect. It is evident that mutual respect was experienced and embedded in local Awabakal practice before invasion. Felicity McMullen, an Awabakal woman, stated that the challenge is to practice the kind of reconciling dialogue that is respectful, warm, sincere, constructive and affectionate. It must spring from the courage to be who we are, both Indigenous and non-Indigenous, and to investigate and speak our truth respectfully, for it is by practicing Wiyil Kaigho that we bring about reconciliation.